I'm rethinking having a child with my wife because of what I just found out about her dad. Aita, my wife Jessica, 32F, and I, 30M, have been married for 2 years and are trying for a baby. Jessica has an older sister, Mary, that she isn't close to. She told me that they had a huge falling out over some family drama and just don't speak anymore. I asked a few times about the entire situation, but she would say she doesn't like talking about it and doesn't think it's important. It was Jessica's brother's birthday yesterday, and we were all over at his house to celebrate. Mary made an appearance, and there was a lot of drama. Long story short, she called Jessica and her brothers out for still associating with their dad when they know that he is a child molester. No one was paying her any mind, and I was really confused on what the hell was going on. When Mary left and Jessica and I went home, I asked Jessica what the hell happened. She said that when they were kids, Mary used to claim that their dad used to molest her. I asked if it's true, and Jessica was stuttering a lot. She said she knows her dad used to do bad things, but that Mary cut them all off when she turned 18 and moved out. I asked if she is admitting that she knows her dad was a child molester and did things to his own daughter. She said he doesn't do it anymore and he was just in a really bad place in his life. And he apologized to Mary, so there's nothing else anyone can do for Mary. I was honestly appalled. I also feel so terrible for Mary. Jessica made it seem like Mary did something wrong and deserved to be basically exiled from the family. I could have never imagined that this is what happened. I asked if she expects me to now be willing to have that man around our future children, and she started shouting at me, saying I'm judging him off something that happened 2 decades ago, and whether I like it or not, he is going to be our child's grandpa and he will be in their lives. I said if she insists on it, I think we need to hold off on having kids and have serious conversations about it. She's extremely angry at me, but I don't know how I could better react, to be honest. This feels like a huge deal that she is minimizing. Aita, Intia. Pedophiles rarely retire. I also wonder if OP's wife was molested, but it's buried too deep. Possible, but just because they're a child molester doesn't mean they molest any child they have an opportunity to. Some do, but some are more selective. Of course not. But any young girl in that house growing up could have been at risk or abused. Not 100%, but just something for OP to be aware of. His wife may be a victim and doesn't remember, or does remember, but feels/knows that if she tells, that is disloyalty to the family and feels that has extreme consequences. Sure, as an adult it doesn't, but kid brain wore the grooves, and it takes a lot to get your brain out of them. It's not only applicable to children. I have heard grown adults defend not reporting molestation and even child prostitution from their own fathers/mothers/uncles/aunts/etc. because it would ruin the family, as if abusing the child didn't already. Yes, I guess what I mean is that as a child, being excluded from your family, to your brain, is like death. You cannot survive alone. So, until you re-examine that, you might be stuck with that thought. Yes, abusing the child already did, and now, as an adult, you will not die if you have to lose contact with the father. That was my thought too. Watch her sister be cut off, and feared for herself. So she's justifying it to appease her own trauma. Dude, get out. Don't have children with this woman. Run fast. Absolutely. Especially with no prosecution or convictions for the father. Forget prosecution/conviction, she doesn't even have disdain. But she's got the fucking audacity, so that's something. I know someone whose father molested both his daughters and then did the same thing to his granddaughters. The whole family knew that happened, and yet they let him babysit for the granddaughters. Because they needed to get some child-free time. Then they got all out of shape when one of daughters talked to the granddaughters about their grandfather. Believe your gut, because he will never change, and your wife's family are terrible for letting this happen and to go unpunished. My grandfather did the same to my aunts, and when it came out, what Opie said above, this was years ago. People need to get over it. But then it came out that he not only molested his stepson and step-grandchildren, it turned out that a neighbor reported him to police for attempting with her daughter as well, and his wife suppressed the info. It came out as he died, and my aunts were settling his estate. Opie, listen to what people are saying. Many people go through a rough time, but never touch a child. Your wife needs therapy and children need to be on hold unless you are both on the same page, or your child will never be safe. That poor sister. Yep. Opie, if you have children with this person, they will be molested. It is not an if. It is a when. It will happen. If you ever get divorced, your children could end up at a molester's house multiple times a week, and there will be absolutely nothing you can do about it. You have been given a golden opportunity by the universe here. You have been given a gift. That gift is a warning. She has shown her hand. So has her family. Not everyone gets that. Most of us don't. But you do. So please, don't squander it. You aren't in too deep yet. You still have time to turn back. You are at a crossroads in life right now. The steps you take next can and will determine the rest of your life. You have an option here to face the music and to deny yourself the comfort of denial. You have to come to terms with the fact that you are married into a family of people who exiled a victim and harbored a monster. Love your children enough to find someone else to have them with. Love yourself enough not to surround yourself with the absolute lowest quality of people the human race has to offer you. He molested his own child. I truly cannot think of anything worse. That's the most sacred, vulnerable relationship a human can have with another human. And he defiled it. Get yourself away from these people. Honestly, I wouldn't trust your wife around future children. She knowingly helped hide a child molester because he was just in a bad place. That is not the kind of person I'd ever trust with a child. NTA. If she'll skim over the trauma he caused her sister, then it'll be brushed off as nothing if it's their kid. Oh, it couldn't have been like that, making excuses for her father at every turn. If Opie wants kids, he better RUUN. But dear old dad was just in a really bad place in his life. I mean, isn't that what everyone does? You know, go through a rough spot and molest their child, or any child, to make themselves feel better? /s. That's absolutely terrifying. I'd venture a guess that Opie's wife was molested, too, and was just conditioned to ignore/repress it. This goes way beyond not having children with her. She displayed no empathy for her sister and is making excuses for the abuser. She would not be a mother I would choose for my children, whether you get past this or not. And she wouldn't be my partner of choice either, honestly. I'm sorry you're only finding out now, but at least there are no kids in the picture. I rarely advocate leaving in situations without abuse, but I'd leave. NTA. I just said the same thing above. I'm not one to immediately go to divorce, but this case warrants it. I could never trust her with my children, and God forbid they get divorced. Grandpa would have full access to said kids anytime he wants. I wouldn't want to be in the same city with someone like Opie's wife, much less married to and procreating with her. Imagine you had the chance to stop your potential children from getting abused. Even if that involves them not existing, you need to take that chance because it sounds like Jessica would turn a blind eye to it and not tell Opie. He touched her accidentally. He was stressed. He lost his job. He didn't do it. She's lying. Imagine the excuses. Disgusted behavior on his wife's part. And the predator's part. NTA. OMG, do not have kids with her. She thinks child molestation is defensible because someone had a hard time. She would endanger any children by potentially leaving them with a known child molester or conceal any harm that came to them in the name of keeping up images or keeping the peace. She needs therapy and is not ready for marriage or motherhood until she gets it. Also, please tell her explicitly the reason. Don't tiptoe around it. She needs a wake-up call to how messed up what she's supporting is. NTA. Someone who has glossed over child molestation. Would she want to leave a future child of yours with grandpa for the night? That's chilling. And once you have kids, even if you divorced her for this later, you couldn't get full custody over this. If grandpa never went to prison for it and isn't a convicted sex offender. It's awful all the way around. I can't believe you've been married 2 years before you even hear this story. That's exactly what I was thinking. He never went to prison, never been reported to the police at all, and there's no proof of what he did, so I would have no case and no power to keep him away from our children. I don't want to feel helpless in what happens to my children. I don't want to fail them like that. I don't think I should even have them with her at any point now that this has all come to light. NTA and run. Please talk to someone from RAIN. They are an organization for victims of sexual assault. This is not something minor like occasionally being crabby with your kids on the mornings you have a migraine. This is a crime. I know a victim of child sexual abuse, and many years later and thousands of dollars in therapy, this woman is still hurting. You need to get out now. I wish I could accurately describe how Mary looked and sounded when she was going off on her siblings that day. It actually sent shivers down my spine. She looked so angry but so defeated at the same time. All while they were all looking at her like she was crazy. I still can't wrap my head around it. I want to reach out to her and check if she's all right, but I don't know how appropriate that will be. As someone who experienced sexual abuse as a child and also watched what it does to someone when it's swept under the rug, I believe she would appreciate you reaching out to her and telling her you believe her. The awful thing is, her siblings believe her and know she was molested. They just don't care. I'd leave the wife so fast, her head would spin. That entire clan is ghastly. The way you worded that is so accurate and sad. They believe her. They just don't care, pleading face. My mother denied being touched by her stepfather her whole life and suffered depression and anxiety. Unfortunately, that denial included allowing her 3 children to be exposed to this man. He molested all 3 of us. The trauma for me didn't surface until I was 18. My sister and brother took the drugs and alcohol route to bury the trauma. I was lucky enough to join the military and never did drugs or much alcohol. Child molesters don't stop at one child, and if I had to bet, I'd say your wife was probably molested as well, but she's in denial. Good luck, Opie. It's not easy navigating others' trauma. Like many have said, please don't have children with this woman. She will expose your potential children to her father just like my mom did. My ex's mom and her 2 sisters were raped and molested by their father. Their mother denied it and even beat them as kids for coming to her for help. The dad became homeless and probably dead by now, but part of the reason I broke up with him was because his family was so deeply disturbed it was destroying my mental health. His mom was severely abusive, and his older brother committed suicide in my living room when he was living with us because he was so severely depressed. And to top it off, they had 2 urns of infant ashes. And when I found out how they died from neglect and his mom only did 2 years in the psych ward for it, was really the tipping point for me. Opie, your wife, doesn't understand the impact that child sex abuse can and does have on people. I 100% believe that if that didn't happen to his mom, that 3 out of 6 of her kids wouldn't be dead. My ex wouldn't have become a drug addict and his siblings wouldn't all be fighting depression. Get a divorce, and I am not one of those Redditors who immediately jumps to that. Her father is a monster, and Jessica and her brother are complicit in this monstrosity. My heart breaks for Mary. How in the world could you possibly move forward with Jessica after this? Stop having sex, Opie. Immediately. No, birth control is 100% effective, and you need this hashed out and settled before you create a baby. So just stop. And then you need couples therapy, because she isn't going to hear you. But maybe she will hear a therapist. And if she refuses therapy, you should seriously consider a divorce. That was a massive betrayal to not inform you of her father's behavior. You don't rug sweep such things. Edit forgot to vote. NTA.